Welcome back to the Alec Lewis Show. I am your host, Alec Lewis. This is episode 79, recording on Tuesday, April 29th. The draft is over. JJ McCarthy talked a few hours ago, and so we've got a lot going on. As always, this is going to be a Q&A episode where I solicit questions from you guys on social media. I think we got about 30 plus. I haven't looked at any of them, not at all. So it's just going to be total off the cuff today, and I'm looking forward to it. If you're new here and watching on YouTube, please hit the subscribe button. It helps us out a ton. Hit the like as well. Toss in the comments something that you're frustrated about or that you enjoy. And we always appreciate that stuff. If you're listening on Apple, Spotify, you can rate and review, do all of that good stuff, but we appreciate you being here. This show is presented by First Resource Bank. That's a member FDIC bank in the Minneapolis area, got branches all over the place. I heard recently that some of the listeners, they saw Charlie Anderson, Tim Siegley, Aaron Siegley out on the town, and they knew them from the show, which made me feel very, very proud and cool that, people in the area know these guys in charge of First Resource Bank, which does a lot for the community. So really cool stuff to hear about. And there's been a lot going on. The draft was relentless. If you followed the coverage either on social media or hopefully The Athletic, where I did, I had stories every night on the pick of that day. I had best available players on each day just to try to give you guys the ultimate view of what could be possible. And then there were a couple trades. Obviously, the trade back with Seattle for Sam Howell. And then Kobe King, the Penn State linebacker, who I did not expect to be there. And then the UDFA portion, which was crazy as well. And the Vikings were active and got a ton of guys, which I'm sure we're going to get into at some point throughout the show. But it was wild. It was really fun. Appreciate you guys being here. Probably wanted to do a little more from a show perspective, but I may or may not have been in Orlando because my sister was trying to add to the stress of the weekend by tossing a wedding of hers in, but in all seriousness, congrats to her, her new husband, Nolan, family, people. But it was a great weekend. It was a very fun time. It was fun seeing new players added to this roster. Like one of my favorite times of the year is getting to know new guys and everything that comes with that, whether it's talking to coaches around them, talking to family members. I've already exchanged messages with many, talked to a bunch of coaches about a bunch of these guys, and it is a blast for me. That's part of why you do it. I always say it's the people and it's the stories beyond, the roster analysis that you guys are obviously here for. But let's jump into it. And I'll just go from top to bottom of these questions. If I see one that I don't feel like answering, or I don't feel like the intel is at a place that feels comfortable enough for me, I'll pass on it the way that an executive would if they were reading mean tweets. Carl from Lake Elmo, avid listener, asked, what are you, as the Vikings beat writer, looking forward to the most this offseason? Rest? That would be the number. No, all kidding aside. I mean, it has been a relentless run from the way the season ended, obviously, in Glendale, and then coming back from that, and then you hop right into free agency and the combine and owners meetings, then the quarterback conversation kind of, as you guys know, spiraled beyond what anyone would have probably hoped or expected. And then, it's been a relentless run of the draft. So the rest would be my personal answer. But the real answer, without question, it begins and ends with JJ McCarthy and just how he looks. I mean, I'm speaking on a day where I watched him throw earlier, and it was the first time I've seen him throw in person since the Raiders game that you guys probably were either at and attending or watched on television. And the same movements, the same, whippy arm. Like when I think of JJ McCarthy throwing the ball, I think of very athletic, very whippy. There's no hitches. It's just fluid. The ball comes out. I mean, you're standing on the sideline, the ball's coming towards you, and you can really see the RPMs, revolutions per minute for the uninitiated, and the spiral of the ball. I mean, it just looks fluid coming off the hand. He was putting touch on passes deep down the field. So enjoyed all of getting to see him, but continuing to watch him as the workouts progress, as he's in more competitive environments. I mean, he will be, the answer of how this 2025 year goes will probably begin and wrap up with how the season went for him, and assessing how he looks through this summer will give us a glimpse at maybe what's possible. So it really starts there. And then, I mean, Carl, to answer the question, I love getting to see how these UDFAs specifically kind of just assimilate into the environment. I mean, I'll never forget, after Ivan Pace signed, hearing from people internally that how happy they were to get him, how just feisty, kind of smaller, undersized, could rush the passer. And then you watch some of the film of him, and it was like, man, I can't really believe this guy went undrafted. And then he's out here in workouts. I remember rookie minicamp, he's flying around. And at that point, you started to get a feel pretty quickly that he was not only probably going to make the team, but he was going to contribute in some form or fashion. And it's always cool to see kind of, players like him enter the building with the motivation of not having been picked, and then kind of just blend into the environment and be trusted by coaches like Brian Flores and position coaches. So that's probably how I'll answer that question, Carl, is JJ McCarthy, obviously, and then segueing to kind of just evaluating the Mr. Mankato candidates. Next question comes from Nate, avid listener, big-time Vikings fan, cares a lot about comp picks, more than probably a fan should, but I respect him for it. Vikings invited Nebraska cornerback Tommy Hill to rookie minicamp early in 2024. Dane Brugler, our draft expert, had him day two grade, then he got hurt. Do you have any insight from the team? I'll say, just to cut off the question, no, I haven't talked to anybody with the team recently. Let me make it very clear. Haven't talked to anybody with the team about Tommy Hill recently. I'm not going to say I haven't ever talked about anybody with the team about Tommy Hill, but he's an interesting corner, like very thick build. I've watched him on film because an interesting player. And like Nate, you probably know this, but Travis Hunter, the exceptional Ohtani type football figure, now drafted by the Jacksonville Jaguars, said that the toughest corner he had to go against was Tommy Hill. And he's a very Flores-y type player, probably more of the man cover corner physicality that you traditionally expect with Brian Flores, even though they've used so much zone and played with so much zone eyes since Brian Flores has been here specifically in Minnesota. But it's going to be interesting to see him in person. I like the tape. I can't remember who I watched Nebraska play. It might have been Oregon or something of the sort. But I watched the film of a lot of these corners back to back, whether it was Za Frazier, who the Bears ended up drafting. I watched Will Johnson from Michigan. There was a day or a few days where I probably watched 70 of these draft prospects just, position by position, back to back, to try to evaluate and have my own opinions on it. And I mean, Tommy Hill's definitely an interesting player. I'm looking forward to seeing him as a UDFA. Zamiah Vaughn from Utah. I've talked to people in the league over the last couple of days since, these teams have started to sign UDFAs, and Vaughn from Utah is an interesting player that other teams definitely liked and had interest in. To see these guys, the Tommy Hills, the Zamiah Vaughns, these are deep cuts, but to see those guys alongside of Dwight McGlothern, who was an undrafted player last year, who I really enjoyed getting to see. They're not the most explosive, but the instinctual type players, the ones that seem to just like the description that's always used by analysts is like they just see the field really well. Like, I love those types of players, and it's going to be cool to just evaluate them alongside what is a very young cornerback group as a whole. And, I just think that gives this staff and Brian Flores so much flexibility. They mixed in man coverage at times last year, and I still don't, I'm not of the opinion that they're going to base out of that. But to be able to mix it in and have the faith that the guys they have can run consistently down the field with the dynamic receivers that you see on a week in, week out basis in this league is going to be pretty fun. So hope that gives you some insight, Nate. Mark Larson. There has been talk of Walter Rouse getting a look at guard this offseason. Do you think he stays at tackle with the drafting of Jackson? Could they try him at guard to improve their depth at guard? It's a good question, Mark. There's kind of a glut in that room, which is nice. I mean, I wrote this in my roster projection that I did on The Athletic for Monday, but doing that exercise of trying to fill out the roster for me was the best and most clear, I would say, just process, description, explanation, revelation for me of how much deeper this roster is than it's been in the last 3 years that I've covered this team. And it's specifically deeper at the trench spot. I mean, the starting five on paper is pretty obvious with Christian Darrisaw, Donovan Jackson, Ryan Kelly, Will Fries, Brian O'Neill. And then you have swing tackle Justin Skoll, who is a younger guy who started 5 games last year in Tampa Bay and performed really well in those opportunities. So that's a great spot to have. Blake Brandell, who in the first half of last year's season provided you enough to probably where you feel semi-comfortable with him as a starter. So you have him, who is versatile enough to have played tackle and played guard and even taken snaps as center in the past. And then you've got developmental options, Michael Juergens, Walter Rouse. You're asking about Rouse specifically. I don't know this for a fact, but I wouldn't be shocked to see him take snaps at guard, take snaps at tackle, see how he looks at both. If this team wants to do more of a power running game, gap scheme, vertical duo type approach, maybe having a bigger guard like Walter Rouse does make sense. But if he's, he looks to be in great shape. He was out at workouts today. And if he's got the mobility to maybe stick at tackle, I mean, there's value in that. And then even I've mentioned 9 guys at that position. Haven't talked about Logan Brown, the UDFA from Kansas, who was a 5-star recruit, has had some stuff. I mean, he got kicked off Wisconsin's team. I believe for the reports is that he struck another player. But just a really interesting prospect I know other people in the league really liked. And then Joe Huber is another offensive lineman, UDFA, who's going to be one to watch. I mean, just, again, talking to people throughout the league, a guy, his name comes up as one of the impressive of the many that the Vikings made in that cycle. And so to answer Mark's direct question, I'd be pretty surprised if Walter Rouse doesn't get, snaps at multiple spots. But I just use the question to talk about the interesting, just aspect of the room being as much deeper as it seems to be. Next question comes from a username named Poopface McGee, which I apologize for saying if for the kids out there. I mean, I don't know. Guess kids can say poop. What's your top 3 free agents still available that fit with the Vikings? He gives his, or she, Cam Akers, Devondre Campbell, Mike Hilton, Marcus Williams, just for laughs. None of those do a ton for me. I mean, I love Cam Akers. He's just the man. He's a cool guy to talk to in the locker room. And then, some of the roles that he's played in the last couple of years and what he's overcome. It's impressive. And I do wonder what the Vikings are going to do behind Aaron Jones and Jordan Mason at running back. Could they keep Ty Chandler? I think so. He's in the final year of his rookie deal. I'll never be able to get that 132-yard rushing performance in Cincy out of my head from 2023, but he's also not been consistent enough to earn the confidence consistently. So I wonder if that's a spot where, whether it's the UDFA Trey Stewart from Jacksonville State, whether it is a player like Cam Akers, if that's a spot. Devondre Campbell, I don't see that happening. Just not really a role right now. That linebacker room is really, really deep with a lot of options there. And then just with what happened, I know he went to Minnesota, but with what happened last year in San Francisco, it's just hard for me to see that one making sense. Mike Hilton, I love as a player, that nickel corner type who can blitz, who was phenomenal in Lou Anarumo's system at its, peak when it was really flustering Patrick Mahomes with some of the drop 8 stuff. And he probably fit Brian Flores' system. I just don't know. I mean, right now, like everyone wants to talk about adding the veteran cornerback, and I'm sure as I go through this list of questions, and probably need to do it quicker when we be here for a few hours, but I'm sure I'll get asked about Asante Samuel Jr. I don't have intel on that. I know the rumors have been out there. I also know it wouldn't surprise me at all to see them add a veteran corner at that spot. I should probably just walk 2 floors upstairs and ask the question, or just send a text with the phone that I'm using to record right now. But that'll probably be something for later when I kind of get my second win on that. But none of those guys do a ton for me. I'd have to take a closer look at the free agent class / speak to people that I trust to kind of just, assess the players who would fit best to me. Next question comes from Boogeyman. I'm fully bought in and sipping the purple Kool-Aid, but why should the rest of the NFL be excited for JJ next season? I assume he's talking about JJ this season. And for me, the answer is maybe going to be an unintuitive one. But the reason to get excited about JJ McCarthy is Kevin O'Connell last year proved what he can do and what his offensive system can do for a quarterback who, and I give Sam Darnold, I enjoyed the heck out of covering Sam Darnold last year. It is one of the joys of my professional, like doing this job that's been a dream job for me forever. And I can't even hide that fact. Like getting to be around him and watch him every day, have the response to his career that he had given what the beginning of his career. Like it was just really freaking cool to get to cover that. But Sam, for all of his strengths, mobility, arm strength, willingness to rip it, professionalism in terms of how he shows up every day. What I'm not sure he does have is the processing ability, consistently able to see the field, decision making, be able to control impulses on the field and split second decision making. And that to me is where JJ can separate himself. Like, it's going to be fun to watch JJ rip intermediate throws over the middle of the field. Yes. Is he entertaining in terms of media conversations and does he have the charisma to grab the attention of the entire fan base? He's proven that stuff. But what you can't prove until you are on the field when defenses when it's go time, and these are NFL Sunday games, and defenses are throwing everything at you, the only thing you can that takes till that moment to prove is both toughness and physicality, which is going to be interesting to watch, but then also just processing in real time, where to go with the football, progressing over the middle of the field, progressing to different reads. Like that's where, for me, if I was a Vikings fan, I would feel excited knowing that this head coach, who has proven that he can maximize the circumstances for a quarterback, now has a quarterback who has the mental capability and bandwidth to operate on the fly, like I believe JJ will have. That's a very exciting place to be. Next question comes from the Ultimate Twins fan. Are you concerned about the Vikings not drafting a cornerback? They also have a ton of cap space left. Feels like they're saving it for something big. Or am I totally off on that? To answer the second question first, could they be saving it for something big? Sure. But they also could be saving it knowing that it gives them the opportunity, if something presents itself, to do for the present, while also potentially you're able to roll that money over. So you're giving yourself flexibility in the present, or optionality would probably be the word that Kwesi Adofo-Mensah would use, for the present and then the future. So I think that's part of it. Am I concerned about the Vikings not drafting a cornerback? Not particularly, and part of the lack of concern may be just I might be trusting Brian Flores and this staff's ability to evaluate talent too much, but they prioritize Isaiah Rodgers as a cornerback that could fit their system and what they want to do, both with zone eyes on the quarterback and competitiveness down the field. And it sounds like Isaiah Rodgers is going to get an ample opportunity alongside Byron Murphy Jr. And the Vikings only played 25% of defensive snaps last year with 3 cornerbacks on the field. So it's a minuscule percentage because they have Josh Metellus, who is a slot defender, allowing Byron Murphy and Isaiah Rodgers to probably play on the outside. And then Jeff Okudah has not been, exceptionally successful in his time in the NFL. But I can't get out of my head the 2022 game where, yes, he had help over the top against Justin Jefferson as he was playing for the Lions, but he was physical that day. He bothered Justin on down the field. And again, this may be giving Brian Flores and this defensive staff too much credit. And in due time, I might have to eat that because what they've done through 2 years has been so impressive to where I am very optimistic. But if there is a staff that is going to take what a player can do well and put them in positions to then do that well, that I trust, it would be this one. And Jeff Okudah is a press man, long, short area guy. So if the Vikings stick him on the boundary, the short side of the field, and allow him to use his length and his speed and his aggressiveness, I wouldn't be shocked if that worked. So no, I'm not overly concerned about the Vikings not drafting a cornerback. And then, if they were to add a veteran, it wouldn't surprise me at all, like I've said. Next question comes from Rock NHL. Speaking of NHL, I mean, you guys, this will probably be posted by the time the Wild, hopefully it'll be posted, or I'll be working way too late. By the time the Wild are playing the Vegas Knights, and I mean, I can't tell you how much fun I'm having watching Boldy play, but they definitely need this one tonight. He or she asked, do you have any idea how many primetime games we're getting this year? No, don't know that. Schedule release is May 14th. The more interesting question that I'm just going to leave right here is how many overseas games are there going to be? Because Dublin against the Steelers is not, it's something I've heard. And then we'll see if beyond that there's anything else. But the passport is at the ready. Next question. Skull to the bowl. How many Super Bowls are the Vikings winning with J.J. McCarthy? And why will it be more than 8? I mean, I love the optimism. You see, if you guys are new listening to the show, you'll learn that I'm from Alabama, and I can't stand the negativity of this, the sports fan base in this market. I understand it completely. Don't make no mistake about that. When you haven't won a title, and the links are phenomenal and they've been amazing, but in baseball, football, basketball, or hockey since 1992, you have every reason to be frustrated. But skull to the bull, how many will it be? I'll say they get one, and you can hold me to that. Work off work. What did you do this past weekend, and how was the coffee? So as I said, I may or may not have been in Orlando for my sister's wedding. Very happy for her. Very well deserved, and it was fun to be there. The coffee was not where you want it to be, especially when you're having to do a wedding and a draft at the same time, or not do, because I wasn't in the wedding and I wasn't doing the draft, but media people, sports media, you got to act like you're more important than you are. It's kind of par for the course. Mason, MLFC. Are the Vikings going to address corner needs? Is Asante Samuel Jr. an option? We talked about this. Obviously, we've gotten to this point in the podcast. Again, if one of you guys listening to this said, Byron Murphy Jr. and Isaiah Rodgers and Jeff Okudah, Mekhi Blackman, they don't cut it for me. I can understand that argument completely. I definitely can. And then as far as Asante Samuel Jr., I mean, it's I'm sure others have asked about it as well. That has taken on a life of its own from a rumor perspective. It makes sense. He's a guy who he plays well off cover, zone eyes, was in a similar system-ish with Jesse Minter last year in Los Angeles with the Chargers. And I mean, there might be some overlap with Asante's dad and Brian Flores and some of that Patriots connection and stuff like that, which would be pretty cool and fun to write about. But I have not specifically heard it. And so I haven't been banging the drum for it. But again, would not be surprised at all if they add another veteran cornerback, whether it's sooner or down the line. Jason Ring asks, with the upgrade and change of the O-line, do you think KOC will implement a more power run game, especially in the red zone this year? Absolutely. It will at least be the plan. And then, every plan is great until you get punched in the mouth. But if the power run game, in terms of short yardage, red zone, they try it frequently and it starts to, or they can't create the push that they hope to create with this new offensive line, then maybe, they start to throw the ball as frequently as they do. I thought it was interesting. Brian O'Neill today was asked, do you want to run the football more? And he said, if you'd asked him that 3 years ago, he would have said yes. But now, whatever contributes to winning. But I would say, just listen to Kevin O'Connell and parsing his words this entire offseason. He wants to get back to the core of what this system was supposed to be about. And if you guys ask me, well, Alec, what is that? And I say, marry the run and pass. And your guys are like, what the heck does that mean? It's, does the defense have enough fear in your run game that they are allocating time, resources, bodies to defend it? And if you can get them to that place, you can be more effective in the passing game. Kevin O'Connell knows that at a level that I will never. But to answer the question, yes, I expect to see a lot of, heavy formations, punch you in the mouth, under center, hand the ball off in some of those short yardage situations. Another Asante Samuel question. But this person, Nick Howard, certified Duke hater, asked, it mentions not drafting a safety. And this next question said, I think everyone knows we're going to sign a vet corner, but what about safety? Last year we went in with 4 who could all play. We have 3 right now. Well, the first thing I would say is there's optimism still with Jay Ward, who the team drafted in the middle rounds a couple years ago. So, I know Jay has been flagged on special teams, and it hasn't been he probably hasn't been as great on that in that phase as he would want. But you do hear good things behind the scenes about Jay Ward. And so as far as safety, it's good for me to be able to say now, but in the lead up to the draft, I mean, I was seeing a lot of national media people mock, Nicky Manwari from South Carolina. Some was Georgia Malachi Starks, who probably made more sense as the Vikings pick at number 24. And I just have to say, and and it's easy to say now in hindsight, and it's like the classic, you knew something, but you weren't confident enough to say it at the time type vibe. But I never got the sense or heard that safety was at all a priority in the first round or even in the draft at all. And so, even as the rounds progressed, and it's like, Xavier Watts, people are screaming. First of all, the question I often ask when people love a prospect is how much have you really watched him play? Because even if I love a prospect, I've got to check myself of how much of the film have I actually evaluated. And then the other aspect was I never really felt like safety was really at all a priority. It was even to where if they picked 4 players, didn't think there was really a chance of safety at all. If it was 5 players, really didn't either. If 6, maybe you start talking about it. But vet safety, there are options, there are names, and so it'll be interesting to monitor. But with Theo Jackson, Harrison Smith, Josh Metellus, Jay Ward, sounds like they feel pretty good with that room right now. Next question, Marshall Kellner. What are the chances that either or both of Silas Bolden or Oscar Chapman make the team? Going deep into UDFA. Yes, you are, Marshall, but I love it with how I've talked about this stuff already. Silas Bolden, for those who don't know, returner, receiver, undersized guy, but just wiggle, electric little returner. Played at Oregon State, then transferred to Texas. I think he has a very good chance of making the team. The Vikings really, I mean, in getting the information from someone close to Silas Bolden that the team, guaranteed him $205,000 is a pretty good indication of how much they wanted him. And then Oscar Chapman is a Australian punter from Auburn who, the team, he had a competitive market, sounds like, talking to people in the industry around the UDFA stuff. But, the Vikings signed Seth Vernon last year as a punter to compete with Ryan Wright. And, Seth didn't last long. He had a great leg, but just not the accuracy that you want. The punter spot, to me, it's one of those competitive that'll probably come down to the wire. As it should, just considering what they've gotten from Ryan Wright over the last couple seasons. MN Golf Guy, where is Justin Jefferson for OTAs? It looked like he was at the Wolves game pretty recently, but Justin Jefferson is in and around. The relationships are great. He's JJ McCarthy called him a once-in-a-generation type player. He is that type of guy. I don't worry about him not being at OTAs at all whatsoever. He'll be just fine. Next question comes from Marty J. What is the short and long-term plan at secondary? Were you able to ask Kwesi about it, or are they currently only focused on the present? They're definitely not just focused on the present. That's absolutely not the case. Now, I will say this. A lot of their moves in the last few months have been very present focused. But, even like valuing the comp picks for the future, that is a long-term kind of proposition. Having Theo Jackson, he is, in their eyes, seemingly both a short and long-term answer. Byron Murphy at corner is obviously a long-term answer. Going to see about Mekhi Blackman and Dwight McGlothern and Zemiah Vaughn and Tommy Hill, some of the guys we've talked about. But to me, it's just enough confidence in that group from the coaching staff and from the staff in general that they just didn't feel like they needed to invest long-term as much as they did, in the trenches for most of the offseason, including the draft. Esper Autumn Voyage responded to the question about what's on Vikings fans' mind. JJ McCarthy is on my mind, and I can understand it, and he should be because this year will probably go as far as he takes him and as far as health goes as for the whole roster. So, it's going to be a lot of JJ McCarthy coverage. I wrote a story that I published or that I filed right before I started recording this podcast that I really enjoyed writing about JJ. He's just a fascinating guy. His arc is fascinating. The way he talks is interesting, and the way he thinks about stuff is as well. But there's no question that I said this earlier in the podcast, he has a charisma to him that is just unmistakable. And he also said in this press conference today, which I appreciate, he's like, there's a lot of talk. I'm doing a lot of talking about what I know that I can be the starter. I want to prove this, and this. But he also is like, I'm ready to show it, not just talk about it, which that's what this is going to be about. Amir Eldamiadi asks, I don't think it happens, but now that comp picks are secured, who are some potential free agents still to monitor? Again, need to look at the list. I'm not going to toss out names to act like I know if I've not already, done some real work on that front. Because just like last weekend, when I gave you best available for day 2, and I gave you the names like Ty Felton, who they ended up drafting, I want to be pretty spot on when I do that and not toss out rumors that then people are running with for a long time, even though those can be fun. I'm not going to lie to you. Jeff Nickerson asked, will Felton be involved this year? He's talking about Ty Felton, who the team drafted in the 3rd round. I expect him to be involved, specifically on special teams. It'll definitely start there. He was a core special teamser at Maryland, very respected in that area. And then, we'll see how things go. If Jordan Addison is suspended early on, could he be that wide receiver 3 alongside Justin and Jalen Naylor. It's possible. Could he contribute in other packages? Definitely. But yeah, I would expect. I mean, the initial stage is definitely integration from a special teams perspective, and that is no problem at all. It's the same route that Jalen Naylor took when the Vikings had Adam Thielen and Justin and KJ Osborne and that type of thing. So wouldn't really worry about that. Jeff also asked about the DB stuff, but we've gone over that. Purple Nurple, have you heard anything in the building about possible switching from a zone-heavy run scheme to more of a man-power scheme? I know McVay did this transition. Our new IOL guys are quite a bit heavier. Also, the OL coach from the Jets had experience with Vrabel's Titans. I haven't heard anything, and I think I can make too much about switching from zone to gap scheme. Even the Rams, they do both. Now, they do kind of major in some of the gap duo type stuff. And a lot of that is personnel based, and they have receivers who insert. But I would expect the Vikings to be more creative. I would hope they'd be more creative. But Aaron Jones, in his history, he's thrived in both. I mean, zone and man style runs. Jordan Mason, you guys saw last year, the 49ers ran a lot of kind of outside zone where you press the edge and cut back. And then Jordan Mason can also be kind of a smash mouth guy on the interior. So I'd still probably expect a little bit of both. But if anything, from a fan perspective, from a media perspective, that I would want to kind of not hold to the fire from the stats perspective, but really push them is creativity. Vikes fan 33, why didn't the Vikings address the running back position in this historically deep running back class? Do you see that as a potential target high in the 2026 draft? Well, once they acquired Jordan Mason, who is more reliable than most of the running backs the Vikings could have drafted in this draft, and they did that, mind you, with a 6th-round pick. So Jordan Mason, to get Jordan Mason in the 6th round would supersede any running back that the Vikings could have selected in that draft from a confidence perspective. It's part of why I wasn't that surprised they didn't add to that spot. Now, I've written this and I stand by it. Had Texas Tech's Taj Brooks not been snagged at number 193 from the Cincinnati Bengals, and if he were available at 201, I think that would have happened. So really, it's more a matter of the player that was available at the specific spot. And just because a class is very deep doesn't mean you have to take a player in that. You take a player that you like, that makes sense from your evaluation, that you feel aligns with what's possible in your roster. So, yeah. Hope that answers the question. As far as targeting a running back high in 2026, probably too early to tell. Like I love the guy whose last name is Love from Notre Dame, but I mean, talking draft a year out, it's more of a Dane Brugler type of vibe. Let's see here. Let's kind of go rapid fire here. Coach Simons, if you could comp JJ's throwing release to any other quarterback in their release of the football, who would it be? What a great question. And one that I'm going to think a little bit on this. I mean, if you just like Josh Allen, no, not really. Tua, no, not really. Jaden Daniels, not really. Dak, no. Jalen Hurts, no. Joe Burrow, Lamar, no, not really. Caleb, no. Jared Goff, it's probably a little too stiff. Like I hesitate to say this one because of the reaction, but because he doesn't throw off his back foot like Jordan Love does, but JJ McCarthy has a level of I use the word whippy. I don't know how it's just flexible. It just the ball comes off his hand good, which is a classic pitcher saying. But he's athletic. He's pliable, flexible. So that's probably one that comes to mind. I mean, if I keep thinking and going through it, I mean, I Mayfield, not really. Penix, no. Bryce Young, definitely not. Anthony Richardson, not really. Trevor Lawrence, I'd have to look closer. Herbert, like I don't want to. I'm not comparing him to Herbert at all, but kind of throws like it feels like he's rifling the ball, kind of like that. So I don't know if that's a good way to answer a question like that, but I was just going through it, and hopefully that gives some perspective. But it's very. I mean, like the one thing with him that I always look, and it's because I've talked to quarterbacks coaches and listened to Kevin O'Connell and all this stuff. But like the one thing with JJ that I'm always watching is like, how does he layer passes toward the sideline? Is he doing that consistently? Can he put enough touch to get the ball up and over defenders? Like he has a rifle, and the trajectory is often just like line drive. But can he, instead of hitting a 5-iron, does he have the pitching wedge in and be able to get it up and over? Like that's always what I'm kind of evaluating with him as from a throwing standpoint beyond just his lower body. And like, is he overstriding? We're starting to get intricate, but like I do monitor some of that stuff. Nick Miller, I'm feeling slightly concussed after running through a brick wall after the JJ presser. Should I go to the hospital? I take concussions very seriously. But I did think JJ had some bite to his answer with, do you think you should be the starter? I know I should be. I thought had some good bite to it. Let's see what else. Favorite throw from JJ today. I mean, again, it was routes on air. You're not seeing anything crazy. Again, anything with touch, I like seeing because I know he has the laser beam to fire it over the middle. Long time gone asked, are you a medium rare guy or a straight medium? And I'll hang up and listen. So I'm gonna embarrass myself for a second. I grew up afraid of the pink, and I was a medium well guy growing up. And I look back and I have shame about it, no question. And I give my parents credit; they didn't want me to get any diseases or anything like that. So props to them, but. As I've gotten older, it's kind of this trend line or the slope. I mean, it's young, medium, well. If you're watching YouTube, the age goes up, the more rare I like on the steak. I don't know if that makes sense, but I'm teetering towards medium rare. I mean, it's I don't want it chewy. I want, melt in your mouth type of vibe. So, and I make a pretty good steak. I'm pretty confident about it. Minnesota North Star, and I'll end with this. How confident are you in Sam Howell if McCarthy gets hurt or struggles? So, I was on the radio last week with Paul Allen, and I'm going to correct this on the radio. So if you hear, you're getting an early snippet, but I ripped Sam Howell on the radio. And the reason is, I mean, a lot of the numbers just are not good. So many turnovers, a lot of pressures into sacks. But I spent the other night watching this film of Sam Howell, which is not the most sexy thing to say when you're 28 and probably need to be going out and having a better time. But I care about giving you guys the best insight possible. And I watched a game against the Eagles that he played in 23, a game against the Bills he played in 23, and a game against the 49ers that he played in 23. And a couple things stood out. I mean, one, he has a dang good arm, Sam Howell does. And down the field, he really can place the ball accurately. His offensive line in 23 was atrocious. Now, did he help himself? I'm not really sure. Does he see the field exceptionally well? Like, again, this is where I think J.J. McCarthy kind of separates himself from like the lower tier, lower round picks, just in terms of his ability to process the field. No, Sam Howell, that's probably not his strength. But, if he's running the offense and he's pointing and shooting, he's pretty accurate. And like, there are, he's young, he's athletic, and he's experienced. He knows how to be a pro. He went to North Carolina, is close to Drake May. Drake probably raves about Josh McCown to him. So I think that relationship will definitely really help. But in this system, the most quarterback friendly situation he's ever been in, do I think that he could keep the ship afloat for a while? Yes, I do. So that's how I'll answer that question. But that'll do it for episode 79 of the Alec Lewis Show. It's always fun to kick some questions around. If I didn't get to anything or you had anything else that you want me to give some opinions on, toss that in the comment section below. As always, this show is presented by First Resource Bank. Please go, any local branch. The information of their locations is in the description below. And then if you're new on YouTube, subscribe, hit the like button. It helps us out. And then you can get us, in the future, everywhere you get your podcast. Going to try to analyze some of these UDFAs and draftees in a little more depth with folks who know this stuff really well later this week. But appreciate you guys being here. Thank you for listening and reading over The Athletic, all of the draft coverage, which was a blast to get to do. And we will talk to you guys very, very soon.